Yes, we do have a Bigfoot group on Facebook, and it's called Mogollon Monster, Arizona's Bigfoot. And it's a growing group. It's growing very, very quickly. If you would like to join us on Facebook and discuss more about Arizona's Bigfoot and other Bigfoots, because we have lots of members, go to the description on this video, find the Facebook link, click on it, and join up. It's social media, so we'll be able to discuss a lot of things. Before we get started in the story about what I was going to give today, I want to make a few comments about yesterday's blog, which was about the 18 shots. Don't forget there were 2 shots left. I also need to make mention that during that time period, there was one grizzly bear left in Arizona that they knew of. And its name was Clubfoot. And it was a big bear, but when it was young, it had stepped into a trap. In order for it to escape, it chewed off its foot. Anyway, it learned to hate the scent of steel, and he associated the steel with mankind. And it hated man and anything to do with man, and it basically associated the cattle with mankind. And so therefore it would go around mauling the cattle every time it could. It didn't necessarily eat the cattle, he just killed them and ripped them up. Any fur traps that were found were mangled. It was a big bear, like I said. Now, however, this bear got a reputation, and so everything that was happening up there was related to Clubfoot. And it's kind of funny because you'd get one report of Clubfoot mauling cattle over towards Hennigan's Meadow. Then there would be another report the next day of a grizzly bear mauling the cattle over in the Sholo area, which is impossible. It can't travel that far. I mean, not that quick. And so, like I said, it was getting blamed for almost every cow that was killed. I would like to make mention that my relatives were cattlemen, fur trappers and hunters, and they knew the difference between a bear and the hairy man. That's all there was to it and about it. I'll probably tell you a little bit more about Clubfoot a little later on. Okay, on with the story about that follows 18 shots. This one we call Burn the Mountain. And basically what happened was they gave up for the day at the pond and left, and they were going to try it again the next day. Well, the next day they hit it early, and they went out and they chased up and down the mountains, and finally they got a good trail on the actually what they thought was a bear. And basically the guy with the dogs wanted the bear pelt because he thought it was Clubfoot, and it would be one of the last grizzlies in Arizona, and he thought it would be worth some money for the pelt. They tracked the creature for quite some distance with the dogs. They weren't really tracking by sign. They were tracking with the dogs, and they came to an area, and it was very thickly wooded and so forth. And they went, the dogs caught the scent and started after him, and it was a real strong scent. So he released the dogs and let them go, and they ran into this real thick area. And they were the humans, the 2 guys were coming as fast as they could, but of course the dogs outran them. And when they were getting close to the thicket, a big fight ensued inside the thicket. The dogs were yelping and screaming, and there was roars that weren't recognized and so forth. And they stopped and waited because the guy with the dogs really trusted his dogs. He thought that the dogs would basically tree the bear or make the bear hole up, and they were going to wait for the ruckus to get over with and then go in and get the bear. And of course, all this time, the hunter that shot it was thinking that he was trying to explain in his own mind what he had done and what he had saw. So he was trying to convince himself that it was a bear. Anyway, the ruckus stopped finally. And so the guy that owned the dogs jumped up and he ran into the thicket real quickly. And he was being followed by the other hunter. And as they ran into the thicket, the hunter that shot the creature realized that there was blood on the trees. And so he slowed down to be a little bit more cautious, and he called out to the other one and told him to try to tell him to slow down. And then he could hear the guy that owned the dog he started yelling, "They killed the dogs! They killed the dogs!" And notice I say they. Anyway, they got in there and the dogs were totally ripped apart. The owner of the dogs was the first to arrive on the scene, and he was still kind of out of sight of the other hunter. And he started screaming out, "They killed the dogs! They killed the dogs!" And and basically the other hunter could hear it, but he couldn't see him. And the guy that owned the dogs, the hunter that shot the creature, all could hear him yelling and screaming. And all of a sudden there was a human scream of terror and the ruckus in the bushes and so forth. And when he got there, the man that owned the dogs couldn't be seen. He couldn't find him. So, of course, the hunter that shot the creature, was really prepared. He had his gun ready, the safety off, bullet in the chamber and stuff like that. So he looked around and he found the man stuffed up under a log. He was still alive. And he pulled him out, and the man whispered real quietly, "Burn the mountain." And the hunter that had shot the creatures went, "What?" And he said, "Burn the mountain, get rid of them." So that's the end of that story. However, a little bit of a wrap up on the 18 shots, and you'll see this in the book if you get the book and read it. The hunter that shot the creature actually took the 2 bullets that were left over back to town. He couldn't figure out why he was able to shoot the creature 18 times and it didn't kill it. It should have messed it up. And so he took the 2 bullets and he got 3 2x4s, I think, and nailed them together. And then he fired the 2 bullets into the 2x4s. The bullets just barely penetrated the first 2x4. The bullets had been loaded lightly with gunpowder. Now, this was probably mismanufacturing or something like that, but they didn't have a full charge in them. But still, there was enough impact to, cause the creature to bleed, but not enough to kill it. A little bit of a follow-up and wrap-up of the mountain that they were on. That particular mountain has been burned twice. It was burned back in the early 1900s when this incident happened. And then it was burned just recently in the wallow fire around the White Mountains. However, the wallow fire was not intentionally set in that point. It was just more or less collateral damage from the biggest fire Arizona has ever had.